Hello, strangers and rangers. Welcome back. We are going to be recording part 3 of chapter 5 today. We'll see how far we can get through it, at least one scene for sure. And let's jump right into things. The fourth time Lord Voldemort nearly catches Harry Potter. It is spring in Thetford Forest. Harry is still 16. He spends his morning watching the sun catch between the trees, lighting the world up in red and gold. He doesn't know what's going to happen later that day. It has been 5 months since he's seen Voldemort. Pretty little thing, ain't ya? Harry's entire right side throbs, a low, aching pain that speaks of bruising he'll find later in yellow and blue and purple. A fucking watercolor abstract down his shoulder, across his ribs, at his hip. He swallows down a groan at the thought of it. A hand smooths his fringe back from his brow, thick fingers threading through sweaty, messy hair before curling, fisting, and yanking. Pulling so hard that Harry has no choice but to tip his head back, teetering on his knees, lips parted as he measures out each breath, blinking blindly forward, glasses lost sometime during the run between the trees. There's sweat clinging to his skin, his shirt torn at the collar and hanging from one shoulder, blood dripping from a split in his brow from being so thoroughly tossed across the clearing where Fenrir Greyback finally got a hold of him. This is not how he imagined his day going when he spent the morning watching the sun rise with a dented cup of tea in his hands. He's spent the last few months keeping mostly away from people in general. The only company he's had has been Sirius and, occasionally, Muggles when they managed to find a small town to restock and stay an evening or two. Bouncing around like a pinball, never staying in one spot too long, even when Sirius took off on his own to sneak back home and check in with the Order. Considering the weeks after New Year's he dealt with Voldemort's rage rocking around his head, temples pulsing in constant pain, Harry couldn't take that much of a risk. Couldn't go back to London or Ottery St. Catchpole or Hogsmeade, none of the places that were too obvious. The less people he saw, the less likely it was for him to catch any dangerous attention. He'd missed his friends dreadfully. The only contact he had with them was the letters Sirius brought back with him. He'd missed so much already, over a year gone, and he wanted nothing more than to drop everything and go to the Burrow for an evening of Weasley cooking and hijinks. Though the delight from Fred and George about the success from their prototype fireworks wrecking the Malfoy Yule Ball was evident in their replies, as was the bumbling, sweet, awkward concern from Ron, along with a pack of exploding snap cards to keep him entertained on the run. The best, though, were probably the missives from Hermione and Remus, filled with the updates on politics unfolding in the world he's hiding from, the lessons he gets to practice using with the wand Sirius scrounged up for him, and information Harry might find interesting. It makes him feel a little more connected to them, makes him feel like maybe he isn't missing all too much, though he is disappointed that he missed Hermione banding students together and blackmailing Rita Skeeter into writing the article to end all articles about Umbridge that got the Board of Governors to boot her from Hogwarts so fast they practically fired the pink out of her clothes last year. And he's sad he missed Fred and George opening their shop in Diagon, even if they send a cut of his returns on his investment in their success, back with Sirius each time to help supplement their life on the run. He is happy he missed the drama with Hermione. He is happy he missed the drama Hermione tells him about between her and Ron during the last school year, even if he's a little disheartened that he couldn't be there for her while she watched Ron and Lavender Brown make fools of themselves every chance they got after Ron made the Quidditch team. He doesn't know how all of that ended, not yet, but he hopes it turns out okay. He'd hate to see Ron's obliviousness ruin the friendship they'd had for years. But hearing about it all, knowing life is going on without him there, has an all too familiar pang of longing ringing in his chest. He misses his friends. He misses Hogwarts. Hell, he even misses Snape, sneering and snarking at him every chance he got. The note he'd received. A bruised ego is not a reason to abuse my potions, Potter. With a refill of pain potion had made him laugh. The only thing that keeps him going is knowing that staying away is what is keeping them all safe. keeping the world safe, restricted as Voldemort and his followers are with the oath weaved between them. So, he'd started his day early, stewing a bit in misery, knowing there was no way back, but determined to find a way forward. Sipping his tea and watching the sun begin to crest through the trees like a world on fire, he decided he needed to make a move soon. Needed to make the hard decision to finally go for the one place he knew he'd probably find a Horcrux. Needed to set resolving all of this in motion. Gringotts was out of the question. The second series told him back on New Year's Eve. If he made a move on the Horcrux there, Voldemort would instantly know what Harry had discovered and what he was after. Voldemort would know and make moves to hide all the others. Harry would need to try for Riddle Manor. He just didn't want to do that, not yet, not until he knew how many Voldemort had created. He was still waiting on word back from Dumbledore about that. His old professor had, apparently, been working on getting him that information all year long from a potions professor pulled out of retirement. The second Harry knew, however, he'd move in on Riddle Manor and then on to Albania. Albania, where he knew a young Tom Riddle had traveled to track down the lost diadem of Rowena Ravenclaw, according to the story he'd made between the missives from Dumbledore and a detailed legend from the whimsical Luna Lovegood. Today, he sat waiting on word back from Sirius, sipping his tea, waiting for Sirius to get back from another venture into the wizarding world, where he'd hopefully return with a trinket from Bill Weasley and information from Dumbledore. It was only chance, really, that it was on this same day that Harry's luck finally seemed to run out. It had happened after he'd packed up their things to start hiking toward their rendezvous point. It was maybe midday, the air warm enough to have his old cotton shirt sticking to his skin. He'd been alone, him and the green earth unfurled around him, and then he'd been surrounded. Werewolves. Voldemort had sent werewolves to track after him by scent. He'd tried to run, tried to lead them on a chase away from his original destination, tried to get far enough away that he could apparate without splinching himself in his panic. He hadn't run fast enough. That's how he found himself caught, bruised and bleeding and sweating, panting for breath through the pain along his side. That's how he found himself on his knees before Fenrir Greyback and part of his pack, scalp screaming as rough fingers dragged his head back. That's how he found himself glaring up into gold eyes, Fenrir crouching next to him, grin sharp as he regards Harry, silver hair falling into his face. "So you're the one he's been after," Fenrir rumbles, his other hand coming up, thumb brushing hard enough against Harry's split brow to make him wince, smearing the blood there before bringing it to his mouth with a pleased hum. "Can see why. Taste as good as you look." Harry's nose scrunches up in disgust. Fenrir just grins that much wider. He leans in, nose pressing behind Harry's ear, and inhales deep. "Smell good, too." A shudder ripples up through Harry. He feels his very blood curdle as a tongue, hot and flat, presses along the length of his throat. Harry jerks, clawing at Fenrir's wrist, shoving at him and trying to get free. Fenrir laughs. The sound thrums up Harry's spine, making him struggle all the more. He'd use his wand, but the temporary one Sirius had given him is broken, and his own is buried in the depths of the mokeskin pouch across his chest, along with every other valuable he owns. There's no way for them to open it or get it off of him, not unless he's dead or he does it himself. And he can't reach in and pull his wand free, risking discovery of the prophecy and the Horcrux he's got tucked in there, especially not when one of the gruff men lingering in the clearing says, "The Dark Lord is on his way, Alpha." Harry is stuck, trapped by a strong hand in his hair and then another on his jaw. Harry nearly bites his own tongue when Fenrir drags him to his feet by that grip, snarls and spits right up until Fenrir lets go of his hair to catch his wrists and twist them around his back, right up until that grip on his jaw drops, settling on his throat, deadly claws scraping at the sensitive skin along his neck and under his ears, right up until there's a crack of apparition and Fenrir holds him back against his chest, licking at the shell of his ear. "Hold still now, pretty. Wouldn't want my grip to slip, would ya?" Fenrir says, claws like needle points at Harry's pulse, and then Harry is left standing there, chest heaving and bleeding. "Would be ashamed to shred that pretty neck." Swallowing thick, Harry trembles in place, head tilted back. He's always felt small, but standing here with Fenrir towering against his back, his entire hand covering Harry's throat, he feels tiny. He feels vulnerable. Then, that familiar tingle, that static of awareness of Voldemort drawing near. Harry, as always, feels him before he ever sees him. The Death Eaters come from between the trees first. Harry spots Bellatrix, snow mask on her face, being trailed by a hulking figure that Harry thinks might be her husband. He spots another figure, masked, but the white blonde of his hair gives him away. Their wands are drawn. Bellatrix hisses at one of the closest werewolves, smiling with all her teeth, looking half deranged, and they back away from the Death Eaters until they're positioned somewhere behind where Harry and Fenrir are at the center of the clearing. Then, and only then, does Voldemort emerge from the trees. He's draped in black, his robes long enough to drag behind him against the forest floor like smoke, all red eyes and pale, bone-white skin. His gaze is only for Harry. "Greyback," he greets in that eerie breath of a voice, the one Harry's only heard him use around his followers. "You've done well." "Wasn't hard," Fenrir says. "Once I got his scent, it was easy. Spent weeks trailing after it. Like peach blossoms." Fenrir's fingers flex over Harry's wrists, against his throat. Voldemort's eyes narrow at the movement. Jaw tight, Harry watches as his fingers trail over the bleached wood of his wand. A dangerous sign, Harry knows. "Yes, well, you've done your job well, and you will be rewarded," Voldemort says. "Now, hand the boy over." Behind him, Fenrir clicks his tongue. "Don't think I'll be doing that just yet. Or at all." Voldemort's lips curl up in a sneer, expression pinching, though it smooths out quickly, like he's just barely holding on to his composure. When Harry's scar aches, he knows that to be true. "Pardon? Think I'd like to change the terms." Fenrir grins, grip tightening enough, drawing Harry up onto his toes with a choked grunt, so that Fenrir can bury his nose in Harry's hair for a moment to breathe him in. "Think I want to keep this one?" Harry's eyes screw shut at the sudden wave of blistering rage. It makes his head swim, makes one of his knees buckle until the only thing holding him up is Fenrir. He chokes, vision going spotty, and it doesn't help that he's probably got a concussion. The rage ebbs after a moment. When Harry gets his feet again, eyes fluttering open, sight blurrier than it was with the tears burning at the edges, he sees Voldemort standing there, regarding him. Red gaze hunting over the sight of him, taking in his dirty jeans, his torn shirt, the blood on his face and the sweat on his skin. Harry imagines he looks rather pitiful. "You," Voldemort is practically hissing, eyes locked with Harry's own, "want to keep him? Pretty little thing like this?" Fenrir squeezes at Harry's neck, claws digging in, and Harry smells the blood more than he feels the pain of his skin splitting open. "He'd make a lovely wolf, once I broke him in." Bellatrix cackles like it's the funniest thing she's ever heard, the idea of Fenrir Greyback breaking him in. Something like resignation settles and pits in Harry's stomach. He's heard the story from Sirius about Greyback turning Ramus. He's heard how vicious he is. He's heard how he likes his victims young. He also knows that Voldemort wants nothing more than to see him dead. Harry's eyes flicker down to the earth. He wonders if he'll survive the bite. "I'm afraid, Greyback," Voldemort says, slow and careful, drawing closer, "that will not be possible." Harry's eyes snap up to him. Shock ripples down his spine, and not just because of the threat under the surface of Voldemort's words. It's because of the way Voldemort is holding his wand, lax at his side, as if he isn't about to cast a curse. But Harry knows better. It's because of the way Voldemort is drawing closer and closer still, lazy and relaxed, like he isn't about to tear into someone he sees as an enemy. But Harry knows better. It's because of the placid, uncaring expression on Voldemort's face as he stares over Harry's head at Fenrir. But Harry knows better. There's a deadly wrath simmering between them, an anger so soft, so insidious, that it makes Harry's mouth go dry. No? Fenrir snarls and wrenches the grip he has on Harry's wrists higher, forcing a ragged sound out of Harry's mouth for the first time during this whole standoff. Why not? It's really quite simple, Greyback. Voldemort comes to a slow stop, barely a meter between them. Harry's scalp and the nape of his neck tingle with a fresh wave of nearness. You see, you cannot keep him, Voldemort hisses, sneer unfurling over his face, because he's already mine. The spell that Voldemort lets loose after that is perfectly aimed. It catches Fenrir in the face, knocking his grip free, and Harry jerks away, falling to his hands and knees. Spellfire singes the air. Voldemort's Death Eaters are quick to react, following his lead and whipping out curse after curse at Fenrir and his pack. The wolves respond just as quick, those with wands tossing out counter hexes, while those without are trying to get close and sink their claws into flesh. Harry scrambles out of the way. Heart pounding, Harry ducks once a stray curse. That's a typo. Hold on. Okay. Heart pounding, Harry ducks one stray curse and then a second. There's dirt under his nails as he hauls himself to his feet, dodging around the thick trunk of a tree, right as another spell spatters sparks against the bark of it. Panting, Harry feels a throb at his neck and winces. Bringing his hand up, he touches the shallow claw marks at his throat, his fingers coming away bloody. With a hissed curse, Harry glances back at the fight going on in the clearing. Death Eaters herding the werewolves back, Voldemort casting curse after curse as Greyback deflects them, and then away toward the rest of the forest. They're distracted. He could run right now. Get far enough away, get his wand out, take the risk of the trace, and apparate out of there. There's a scream, a shriek, really, and Harry's gaze whips back to the battle. Bellatrix is cradling her side, a werewolf felled at her boots, but she's bleeding and spitting curses. It seems like the sound of her pain and her mad anger is enough to distract Voldemort, too. His focus draws from Greyback to her, just long enough for Greyback to get some ground back, to lunge forward, wand drawn and claws ready, and Harry is moving before he even realizes what he's doing. Harry's apparated without a wand once before in his life, running from Dudley and his friends on the playground up onto the rooftop of the school building just to get away. It's about as stomach-twisting the second time as it was the first, and Harry nearly loses his stomach even as he appears in place at Voldemort's side and tackles him out of the way of whatever noxious green curse Greyback spits at him. I want to pause here because the lovely Delineate-Creates made this lovely piece of art for Inktober. Links, as always, in the description down below. And I'm going to snag this real quick because there's another grammar type up there. Usually I don't care about the twos, but I'm going to grab that one. They tumble to the leaves and dirt on the forest floor, spell flying over and beyond them. Harry lands, sprawled over Voldemort, body protesting every motion. Somewhere to his right, Bellatrix streaks again, and somewhere behind him he hears Lucius Malfoy's shocked, "My lord!" But Harry is running on adrenaline and instinct. His hand flies up, a wordless and wandless Protego shooting up between him and the next curse that Fenrir unleashes, too weak to hold long but strong enough to take the spellfire. In that fraction of a second, his eyes meet Voldemort's. Staring up at him like he's something wild and unknown, Voldemort holds his gaze. Harry doesn't know how to describe the expression on the monster's face, but he knows it looks very human. Then, Voldemort is twisting their weight over, sending Harry sprawling away from him as he climbs to his feet and starts to counter Greyback's spells, disarming him with a cruel snarl, sending the werewolf's wand flying. Harry takes that for the opening that it is. Springing forward, he catches hold of the wand, thinks of Sirius and safety and the rendezvous point and anything except the fact that he just saved Voldemort's life, and apparates away. And I'm going to stop there because I was already making some pretty bad fumbles for that particular scene, and I've been reading for a hot minute. So Thank you very much, as usual, for hanging out with me. Links for everything are down below if you would like to become a patron and receive further reads and exclusive streams. That is how you do that. If you would like to receive access to Discord and Watch Party, that is like the highest tier on Patreon. So if you are interested in that, check that out. Tumblr is also linked if you want to just come hang out. That's free and fun. Story, if you would like to read the whole thing, linked down below. Thank you, as always, for hanging out with me. And, oh, of course, the art, the lovely Delineate-Creates, that link is also down below. Thank you, thank you. I hope you guys have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.